All right, let's do this, he said to himself alone in his garage. Man, that critical voice is popping up. I feel like I'm doing my podcasting voice and persona, and this is supposed to be totally 100% real. Swaim as you've never heard him. Straight up just being himself. I guess if you watch interviews I do on myself, which, man, you ever look into? I rarely look into celebrity interviews, but then it is enlightening and surprising sometimes. Like, I had never seen a Joaquin Phoenix interview, and it's dumb of me to not understand how acting works after all these years. But you got to admit, like, I don't know, Louis C.K. was out there joking about jerking off in front of people, and then lo and behold, or I guess he's not well, he acted. He was a cop in several Anyway, what was I talking about? This is how this is going to go. That's real. No, I was just going to say I watched the Joaquin interview and, like, his eyes were normal and he wasn't a creep. And I found that genuinely surprising. Not just that he wasn't a creep, but that his eyes look totally different when you look into them. There's like a human soul in there. Welcome to See You Space Pod Boy again. I should have thought of a title. A shadow series for which I'll think of a title right now. The tile is just going to be the generic Small Beans logo, but we'll figure it out. I don't know if I'll pay for art. Maybe I'll draw something myself. Maybe we'll go the What Dinosaur Real Good art route if people remember how that show looked. Regardless, what is this? Well, it's a sneaky little side project that Abe and Adam don't know about that I used my login to just drop. So this is just dropped, like so much beat. And it's going to be a solo show. I was inspired specifically by I was going to say friend, but I still consider him a friend. But I mean, we don't hang out or talk that often, just because that's how adult life is. But Adam Todd Brown, who I have nothing but goodwill for, has a solo podcast, and I was always curious if I could pull it off. So this is a watch-along Cowboy Bebop series with just me, Michael Swaim, trying to carry the whole thing himself. Abe and Adam watch the episodes, and then, first of all, I've never seen it other than the movie. I've seen the Cowboy Bebop movie. So this will be a first-time watch for me. I'll be reacting in real time. We'll hit play together and start Asteroid Blues in a minute here, but I just wanted to give a little preamble. Adam and Abe have a much superior series called See You Space Podboy, the bulk of which I think will ultimately be behind our Patreon paywall. So I hope I can convert you, if you're hearing this on the free feed, to a subscriber someday, because it is indeed, in case you're wondering how we pay rent and buy food, I don't know. Sometimes it's totally a side gig for people. I can say this is my it's tied for my primary source of income. Hey, check me out at Cracked again. I'm back at Cracked, which pays roughly the same that Small Beans pays me, to do one video a week. So if you weren't aware, there's that. What else? I dropped a novel, which is probably the thing that I'm most proud of in my life because my son is not born yet. And that's the other news if you hadn't heard. Son coming in January. Wish it had been a girl. And I will say that at the peril of my lovely son hearing this someday, because I'm very transparent with the audience, or at least I try to be. Son, if you're listening to this, I love you just as much as I could have loved. And I shouldn't assume your gender identity, but you were born with a penis, and that's fine. I guess what I'm hoping for is gentle energy, because I'm way on that end of the spectrum, and it would be nice to not have like a meathead football jock bro, but we'll see, nature nurture, because some dudes in my family are that. So I don't know how much that's a genetic thing. Love of CTEs. Where was I? This is great. This is so good. So I'm going to follow every release of See You Space Podboy, which is the professional style. Adam Ganzer, Abe Epperson, two big beans who you may know from Director Piece Theater, using all of their knowledge and skill as directors and writers and producers to analyze probably the themes and the tropes. I'm just going to react live action and probably dip into Just my thoughts on what's going on in my life, because I'll probably run out of, or at least need to fill blank space with, hopefully insightful and or funny, or at least charming or engaging material, or maybe puns. Remains to be seen. My brain spits those out a lot. For every one terrible pun I say, there's 8 that I didn't. So we'll see how many of those I drop since I'm left to my own devices. Speaking of devices, cue yours up for Asteroid Blues. I'm sure I have more to say, but I'll do it as we go. Hopefully you're queued up by now, or you paused and unpaused. What did I say? Yeah. So we're going to do every episode, and I'll drop them the day after Ganser and Abe's episodes. Oh, my point is theirs wasn't a watch-along. They analyze it and talk. Yeah, maybe I said that already. Fuck me. Skip it. I'm editing this show, so that means there's no editing and no theme. It's just a show. I think that fits with it being a shadow series that no one approved. Okay, now, surely, for God's sake, you have Asteroid Blues Session 1, as they call their episodes, of Cowboy Bebop, the original anime, or anime, however you want to say it, if you've only ever seen it written. Seen it written. Enunciate clearly, Michael. Let's do it. I'm hitting play from the very top, which seems to be a slanty Dutch shot of some Big Ben type buildings in the rain. I'm hitting play in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. See that? I know the intro sequence enough to reference. I'm hearing Bell. Dave Bell would have been good to invite, but I didn't. He'd fill that space. I love, hanging out with Dave Bell, and we both fill spaces together. And we high five, and a lady's there as well. All right, how far did we? 7:25 before a joke that relies on inherent misogyny. Pretty good with no filter. I wonder how many offensive things I'll say with no filter. Speaking of which, Rose. Okay, desaturated with. All right, okay. Forget my story. Let's react to Cowboy Bebop for a while and the sparks. And it's in silence. I'm so jazzed already. Damn, dude. It really does have... Oh, I love how the flame is just blue and orange. I'm a huge fan of animation. Fuck, this is going to be hard to even cram in. Because this show's short. Because I'm going to stop when the show stops and give myself a little final word and get out. But famously, the song Tank, everyone knows, one of the greatest intro sequences of all time. I know the intro sequence. I've watched it many times, even analyzed it critically. I know it as well, of course, because Venture Brothers' intro sequence is sort of an homage that doesn't really touch this in terms of the imaginative animation techniques, but that opening sequence was dope too. I know I'm going to like that guy, the bald guy with the mech arm. I like anyone with a weird fucked up arm. Oron from FFX comes to mind. Regardless, what was I saying? Tank! I'm a huge fan of animation and all various types. Anime overwhelms me with the sheer amount. I've watched a fair amount, but it's probably layer 1 or some layer 2 stuff. And I say that because in comedy writing, or the writers I've worked with, we sometimes sort stuff into 3 buckets. One is low-hanging fruit that kids will get, but adults will chuckle. 2 is the choice where you're like, that's a deep pull, that's good. And 3 is almost a non sequitur, even if it technically tracks. But it's a 1%er joke or whatever. So, meaning 1% of people will get it, not rich people. What was I getting at? Great. This is so freeing. I can just drop threads because that's another thing when you have multiple voices, be entertaining, don't allow silence, but do talk about the show. But remember that only you can talk. I think I have no room to pause or recall something I dropped. So I'm sorry if that's a frustrating aspect. Oh, I love animation. I always have, I always will, but I'm only versed. I'm only versed in stuff like Hayao Miyazaki, Cowboy Bebop. But, I hit some beats here like I've seen every Hayao Miyazaki, including their testicles change size and all that stuff. And this will be nice to finally fill in Bebop, which admittedly is an A-level choice as well. I'm also super excited about the Uzumaki anime on Adult Swim, which just dropped recently. Jet's his name. And he has a thing right where 7 of 9. No, hers is on her left. But he has the eye thing. He has a Borg thing. Okay. They're poor. I get it. It hits the tropes, okay? It's Firefly. Okay, the last job went bad. Okay, I think I've absorbed enough to talk for a bit. Already dripping in style and amazing animation. We're actually going to cover I'm a Virgo on Frame Rate soon. And that show, if you haven't seen it, has a ton of animation of, at least I counted, 4 different distinct styles embedded within its world. Also super cool if you just love animation. I've always been, although I need to explore anime more because I do enjoy it. But it's like jazz, where I wish I enjoyed jazz more. And I think a large percentage, which people hear all the time, looks the same or samey to me. And then you find out there's 800 episodes. I have all the standard blocks, but I do appreciate it. And I understand that if you're a connoisseur, you would be like, they look totally different. Just like I listened to punk and it took a while, but then I was like, they sound totally different when I was into pop punk in the 90s and early aughts. Regardless, I'm saying that too much. Let's ban that word. So already dripping in style is my point. Animation has always fascinated me. And I love almost the more abstract, the better. If you've ever read Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics, you know where I'm coming from. I'm fascinated with the idea of how little or how much you can just use color fields and shapes or just the suggestion of movement, and the human brain can still interpret it. Not only interpret what you intended it to be, but imbue it with meaning that resonates with the entire neural web of their whole connection with an apple or whatever it is, right? That makes me think of certain colors. It makes me think of nature and trees and the letter A, because that's what we always, A is apple. And I can get that from just the Apple logo. And I think that's cool about the human brain, because it evolved to see real things and categorize them. But man, it can stretch really far and just be like the suggestion, of course, as Scott McCloud teaches, which was a huge revelation for me at the time in college. Great book. I still go back to it frequently. It's on right by my desk. Really grounding if you like to think at this level of media analysis. But regardless, the far end of that, of course, is letters. Then you just have the word apple, which is a totally abstract C-choice non sequitur symbol that it doesn't look like an apple, smell like an apple, or even take on the shape of an apple. In fact, it's the upside down head of a bowl, I think, was the origin of the shape itself of the letter A, at least capital A. But, I almost said the banned word. But it's, that's cool. That to me, and that's why I devote myself to writing in part, is I've always been fascinated by the idea that animation is just on a spectrum of using images to symbolize thought, and the far end of that spectrum is abstract little scratches on a page. That's so cool to me. All right, let's check back in. I want to say femme fatale, but we're at it's Western tropes woven in, so maybe not a femme fatale is probably not the right word. I have Quick and the Dead vibes going on. I saw the word scorpion. You gotta love world building that's like, what we know it's derelict and we want graffiti. What graffiti can we put on here that doesn't mean anything? I don't want to spend a lot of time thinking about why that graffiti's there in the background. Like, I'm playing a great video game right now called UFO 50, and they have nice boob shot. They have graffiti that just says like die, die, die and Scud Rocket. And that's pretty standard, I think. I saw Scorpion in here. Okay. I thought that was going to inject in the pupil. So we're doing eye spray based drugs, I gather. I'm wondering, I'm going to guess that's not a series or seasonal through line. That feels like the case of the week. So let's see if I'm right. Let's see if that's resolved out by the end. But what hasn't? Ooh, I was speaking of Quick and the Dead. That's the exact shot of the final triumphant headshot, but from the other side of the head, which, man, that shot was the coolest thing in the world to me as a kid. I thought about it often, which is morbid and creepy now that I look back, like a little boy just walking around like, man, he blew a hole in that dude's head. Man, you could see the gun. You could see him in the distance holding his gun up through the hole in the man whose years of life he stole away from him. I should do that to my bullies. Or so goes the popular wisdom. So, okay, headshot but slow. Oh, it makes you super speed. So that's what I was going to bring up. I can talk a lot fast. I'm always amazed how fast I can fill in with bullshit and such. But it reminds me of, I can't forget how Dread's drug is administered, but it makes everything go slow, which is kind of the power used. And then I thought Snowpiercer drug was an eyeball spray. No, it's gum. No, that's the cockroach bars. Fuck. I'm going to have to nerd check my shit. I do actually do that. I take my job seriously, especially now that I'm freelance. The video game, I would still love to work in video games. It's a big goal for me. I love the medium more and more as I age, actually, which is interesting because I've watched most of my friends grow out of it. But I would really love, if you're listening to this, you never know what you put out in the universe. Damn, I'd love to write for games. I got to write for IGN. I've written for a couple small games. I was a voice in a really small game. And then I was working on my first big game with a company that it was a startup and it was their first game and it didn't make it to production and the company folded. So now I'm doing just freelance work, hence being back at Cracked and Small Beans being my main source of income. But my wife has good income as a social worker, believe it or not. And I don't mean good, but good for a social worker. So at least we can afford a house in Santa Rosa that's big enough to host a child. We did have to move much further from SF because it's just like a concentric circle of the further out you go, the hotter it gets and the cheaper it gets. And we needed to spend the same amount on a bigger house. So further out we go. It's cool, though, because we're now 10 minutes from my folks. That'll be helpful when the baby comes. I'm all over the place. Get 'em, Jet. That looked like a Roman aqueduct, didn't it? Or the bridge you take at the beginning of Ico. Dripping in swag. Wish my hair would do that. God, I wish I could have long hair, even that long. All the male swains have this thing where once the hair is past medium length, there's some videos that you can find where you see it on me, but I tried to avoid it. That's like when it's time to cut my hair. Anyway, my middle length, it just sucks ass. It like bends out like a duck's butt all around in a 360 and it don't go down. Like it takes a lot of growth past that point for there to be enough weight for it to pull down, and then it becomes wavy, like really wavy. So my hair is like arrow straight and then suddenly there's waves in it. It looks like a lasagna sheet. I don't like it. So I'm probably rocking short hair till I die. Jen goes back and forth between long hair and shaved head, which is fun. You get the big moment of change. Let's see. Fusion Defense Libe was the only graffiti I caught there. He's sweaty. Does that mean they were just flirting? There's anime tropes that I don't fully understand. There's one where snot bubble comes out of your nose. I think that means you're embarrassed flirting or like flirting with someone but you're nervous. But I could be totally wrong. Like I say, I'm versed enough to recognize them and then not know what emotion they're supposed to universally mean, which is another cool thing about symbols, that they're culturally contextual, as everything is. Hell! Now that, is probably a Shell gas station. I was going to say best graffiti so far, but I take it back. God Killer. Cool. I'm sure a lot of commenters and Abe and potentially Adam. I actually don't have a fix, which is why I'm very excited to hear the show on if he worships the show as much as Abe does. But regardless, people are going to yell at me to actually watch it and pay attention, watch it. And I should do that too sometime. But this was a fun, creative challenge. The little booby window, twirling the cigar around the fingers, curving earth with visible patchwork. I'm just naming things that every couple seconds there's a cool sci-fi decision, either in the art or the offer. I saw that in the movie. The movie pulled that off, but I get the appeal. Man, pregnancy stuff, funny as we live through things, how much they resonate. Why was I talking about video games before? Oh, I was saying since I freelanced, I've gone back to, which I was at Cracked, really working at my job, which means since I don't remember if the Snowpiercer drug was eyeball injected or not, or a spray, I think it was a gum, but I might be confusing it with the bar. I'm going to go search the Wikipedia and refresh. I treat it like I do pride myself on being almost the neurodivergent level of encyclopedic knowledge on. But I let it fade. I'm like, I follow the algorithm. I let it fade. I mean, just by necessity of most of my work ended up being in the internet field, pop culture analysis. And as such, if you stop, like I don't have to remember Radiohead stuff anymore, which they're still just as great, but no one talks about them. Pokemon, still just as big as ever, still very resistant to thinking about. Realize I interrupted my thread to bring up something else and finish a thread, and I lost that thread. Looping the third. Sometimes I just sing stuff that comes into my mind. Don't mind me. Ooh, I like the parallax in the rearview mirror. That's cool. There's a watch-along show with two comedians I fucking adore, Nicole Byer and Lauren Lapkus, called Newcomers. It's way bigger than this show. So chances are, man, probably some of you listen to it or love them too. I love all the OG, that whole crew. Man, this is pathetic, but I'm 39. I guess we all have our idols, but they seem like the cool kids to me. So does Adult Swim. So does writing for video games. These seem like rock star jobs to me because of my interests. So like once at a con, I was in the room with all the Adult Swim writers. Jamie Loftus writes for Adult Swim. I know many people who write for Adult Swim, which is way closer to writing for Adult Swim than, 95% of people in the country. Is like, I know 5 people personally who write for Adult Swim, and yet I don't, and I probably never will. And as you age, these moments are fewer and farther between, especially as you learn to appreciate things more. And life is tough, man. You may or may not have more or less things to appreciate, but you learn how to appreciate, and if you work at it. So I'm better at that, and I'm sort of a chiller dude just in time for the kid to come, which is good. Over the last few years. But where was I going with this? We all get jealous. Oh, I will get struck like lightning with, the imagined life I was supposed to have when I was 10 of being a Coen Brothers level filmmaker or something, like whatever my dream of the maximum fulfillment of my art could be. And when it comes, the shape that takes for me definitely is like writing for Adult Swim would be right up there. Like I won the lotto or worked with Paul McCartney or whatever might be your margin of success. Worked with Kendrick. That or writing a cool video game that hits. I think Jay Pinkerton embedded that in my brain and my love of the medium. But Jay Pinkerton, Cracked alum, wrote Portal 2, of course, one of the best scripts ever in video gaming, especially that was allowed to be funny and have jokes when you factor that in. But what was the other? Well, writing for Futurama would have been dope. That would have been an ultimate iteration of my form, my inner soul, ultimate form. So is my novel, The Climb, though, which I'm going to plug a lot in this because I get to say whatever I want. The climb is everything that's inside me on a plate, definitely, as much as my skill currently can translate. If you're interested in that, it's also a super postmodern mashup, epic fantasy, sci-fi, western, all kinds of elements woven together. It's pretty cool, I think, and it comes from the heart and is hopefully it came up in my brain because it touches on some of these topics that we're discussing, and by we I mean I into a microphone, all lonely alone at home. But yeah, that whole crew, Lauren Lapkus, Nicole Byer, Comedy Bang Bang, of course, being the central starting point that I've listened to for decade plus, that introduced me to all these people, Carl Tart and the whole cadre. But now I listen to all of their podcasts, John Gabris, and there's many, they all have podcasts and lots of them are great. Newcomers, the Watchalongs especially, I want to like so much. And they talk about this on the show, so I would never put it in their reviews or anything, but there's no chance they'll hear this. So I really unfortunately agree with all the people who say that it does, even people you love, it's not fun to hear for an hour. I get it. We recently covered something really bad. Senua's Sacrifice. And someone did an eloquent comment about how it's really not fun to hear a pylon. And it resonated. It's really hard with me when I listen to Newcomers. This is apropos of nothing, but it's like they watch Batman movies. They watch Mask of the Phantasm and then talk about how much they didn't get it or understand what was going on, looked at their phones and didn't pay attention, and ultimately didn't enjoy it. And it's like, don't do that. Don't do that and then talk to me about it like you have important stuff to say. But anyway, I think they're both phenomenally talented, underrated comedy minds. I'm just bitching about tiny minutia because it's my right. If you're still listening at this point, we've got a very stylish, which is a word I should also try and curtail as we do 20 plus episodes of this. Dogfight set to the sex sax that I associate with Kenny G and Silk Sheets. Okay, he is kidnapped. The guy with super speed. A lot of addiction themes in the book because I was an alcoholic for a decade. That's interesting too, if it's interesting to you. He's addicted to the drug, so he's escalating his usage. It seems he is placed in peril by kidnapping a pregnant lady. I wonder if she was tragically a couple with him or a love interest for Spike, but who knows? I also wonder if Spike stands to gain money or begrudgingly his better nature sucked him into a noir plot. Probably that, I'm going to guess. Nice reveal. Who shot who? She shot him. Of course. I feel like because it's noir western, I knew it would be she shot him, but they're going to pay a heavy cost is what I was about to say. And there she goes. Not always death. Sometimes it's just that you have to break up and never see each other again. Of course, Casablanca et al. Grim Fandango. But in this case, because it's also a serial sci-fi show, Captain Picard, like, she has to leave to hunt for artifacts and or leave the show somehow permanently. So she gone. Which I understand is a phrase that has something to do with sports. I absorbed it through Adam. It's normally he gone. Think it's baseball, if I had to guess. I like that they can do 0G and it doesn't raise the budget at all. Because all my favorite shows, which people, if they know me, know, I'm almost definitely two. It's a weird obsession with Next Generation, and we're wrapping up. See you, Space Pod Boys. I'll see you next week. While the credits roll, I'm going to turn the volume down and just talk through the credits, and we'll wrap this up. But yeah, as I said, I'm looking at my board right now. It's funny, and I see pics of my brother's baby, and I'm like, it seems unreal that the baby's going to be here soon. And it's super funny because Adam and Abe, I actually asked if they could take some podcasts off my plate, and that's part of why they're supporting by doing CU Space Pod Boys, so that there's not a gap and yet people are still getting good content that I don't have to contribute to. I ain't going anywhere. Maybe for a bit like Tom did, but we'll see. But Small Beans is still a huge priority for me. But regardless, now I'm like, wouldn't it be funny if I did a shadow series so that I end up doing the exact same amount of work regardless, and you, the audience, win from my... what am I doing? I can't do this. This is what we talked about in therapy yesterday. I can't, man, we made this spreadsheet and it was like an 80-hour week with, okay, no, this was a mistake. All right, so this will be the last one. I got to go take care of my kid and shit. Hope you enjoyed it. You know, it was really just a joke, so I feel like the joke was deployed. You get it. So go listen to CU Space Podboy. It's really your only source of great Cowboy Bebop analysis on the network or anywhere. So check out CU Space Podboy exclusively on the Small Beans Network with your hosts Adam Ganzer and Abe Epperson, coming yesterday, at least to the Patreon, which you can find at patreon.com/smallbeans, where you can also click on the shop tab to find all kinds of bonus shit, a comic I wrote that's beautiful and underpriced, a novel I wrote in both physical and audio form. Not physical, digital and audio form. All right, my playlist has moved over to episode 1 of Home Movies, so I'm going to go watch that and bid you adieu.